Hey Night Riders, Disregarding Henry here, and welcome to another new show called Unmade Masterpieces. As the title probably already tells you, this is a show where I get to talk about great movies that never got made. Our first entry is one that I've already mentioned a few times, a bit in my talk on Shane Carruth, and a little bit more in my review of Upstream Color, but now we're going to talk about it in depth. Shane Carruth's A Topiary. This was originally supposed to be Carruth's second feature. He spent years trying to find financing at various studios after the success of his micro-budget debut, Primer, and despite attracting the interest of both Steven Soderbergh and David Fincher, who came on as executive producers, the money never came through. Carruth was looking for about $20 million to bring this ridiculously ambitious story to life, but when that proved impossible, he started lowering it, eventually getting down to around $15 or $14 million. Not much compared to other Hollywood sci-fi epics, but quite a lot when you put it alongside Carruth's only other film, Primer, which cost about $7,000. But the strangeness of this story, its experimental nature, Carruth's inexperience, his refusal to hire any recognizable actors, and his desire to retain rigid control over every possible aspect of the film kept studios at a distance. His desire for control even extended into special effects, which he planned on designing entirely by himself. He was so convinced that he could do this, he programmed his own CGI system and used it to create a mock trailer for the film. There was always great interest expressed during meetings. Carruth would think a deal would be locked. He'd wait for the money to show up, and nothing would happen. After nearly a decade, he still wasn't any closer to bringing this story to life than he was when he started, and finally, he had to abandon it. He'd set up a website which had nothing more than the title of the film and the tagline, "Over and over you have been promised adventure, but have not found it," as well as designed a few test shots for the special effects, which, as I stated in my review for it, you can see in his latest film, Upstream Color. But that was all. Carruth later stated, and I quote, "I decided that if nobody was gonna say no, I was gonna have to say no." I like to call this my lottery movie. My friends and I each have different movies that we always say we'd finance if we won the lottery. If I won $20 million tomorrow, I'd give it all to Carruth if I could, because I want to see this movie so desperately. To borrow a phrase from Carruth himself, it breaks my heart that it will never be made. Carruth is still fairly young. I suppose there's a chance, a slight chance, that he may come back to it a few years down the line, but I wouldn't count on it. I read about this film a while back and heard bits and pieces about its production history and its story, and I was so fascinated by it, I made it my mission to track down the script and read it. That wound up being fairly difficult at the time, but eventually, I succeeded. I don't know if I could get into trouble for this, since Carruth isn't much of a fan of sharing his scripts and has decided against publishing them, despite offers to do just that, but I'm going to give a detailed synopsis of this story and share some thoughts on it. If Carruth or anybody else asks me to take this video down, I will, because I'm about to spoil everything, which I assume is okay because it's so unlikely this film will ever see the light of day. A Topiary is long. 244 pages, and packed with many different characters, cryptic information, and complex terminology. It tells two distinct stories, and is formatted in an extremely unusual way. I'm just going to read the note Carruth himself wrote on the first page of the script. Note: for a couple reasons, this screenplay does not adhere to the one-page, one-minute convention. 1. Although most scenes are incredibly brief, there are more than twice as many of them here than an average script, resulting in more description and scene headings. 2. Many objects in this story don't have a real-world analog, again resulting in more description. The first act, involving the adults in the early 1980s, is paced somewhere between a traditional narrative and the previously on section of a TV show. Assume there is a cut to between every action. It will run at about 30 seconds a page, taking 30 minutes of screen time. The kids' story runs at 40 seconds a page for another 2 hours of screen time. Here we have our first surprise. There are 2 acts to this script, as Carruth terms it, and they are seemingly unrelated. The first act follows a group of adults, the second act follows a group of kids. The majority of the script is focused on the kids, but both stories are stunningly original and deeply compelling. Let me summarize the first act here, and since both are so complex and so nuanced, I'll be splitting this into at least 2 videos, and I'll summarize the second act in the next video. Here we go. Get ready, because this is a lot to take in. Act 1 opens with a family, mom, dad, and 3 kids, packed in a car, traveling down a highway. Nothing extraordinary is happening. Dad is driving, mom is trying to take care of all 3 kids at once until a truck suddenly changes lanes in front of them. Dad loses control of the car and a horrific accident takes place, killing everyone. Carruth specifies in the script that this whole scene takes place in a single shot, the camera locked down in the back of the car facing forward, watching all of this unfold without any cuts. After this shocking prologue, we meet our main character for this story, Acre Stowe, an analyst who works for the Department of Transportation. He's asked by some lobbyists who are planning to build a headquarters for a rapid response team for dealing with serious traffic accidents in the city more quickly, to take the locations of every car accident that's taken place in the city over the past 7 years and determine from that information the geographical center of all those accidents. The building for the rapid response team will be built as near that center as possible, the idea being that they can be as close as they can to the locations of any theoretical future accidents based on the averages, or at least that's what they say. Acre crunches the numbers, and the location is revealed to be an intersection in the city, Lamar and Cheek Sparger, just a plain, ordinary intersection. Acre's actually pleased. He thought it would turn out to be on top of a mountain or something. He turns in his work, and the lobbyists are disappointed. This particular intersection isn't anywhere near the preferred locations they want for this building, so they get some updated information, 7 years of traffic accidents, plus the 7 most recent accidents added to that, and give it to Acre to do all over again. He's understandably frustrated, but he does his job. Expecting a different result this time, he's surprised to discover that this new information does not alter it. He gets the same intersection, Lamar and Cheek Sparger. The lobbyists are suspicious. They think he's playing some kind of joke. So they select 3 months with unusually high accident rates from the city's records and give those to Acre to do the whole thing over again. He does, and once again, the same intersection is the result. He gives it to 2 other co-workers, and they get the same result. He can't understand how this could be possible. Out of frustration, he asks the lobbyists to just tell him where they want the building site to be, and he'll simply fake the results to suit that location. Problem solved, right? Well, only now Acres developed something of an obsession with this intersection. Why did it keep coming up in those results? What is so special about this intersection? He starts visiting Lamar and Cheek Sparger every day, examining buildings, trying to see the intersection from every possible angle, on the corner, from the rooftops. He even has the street dug up, illegally I might add, to examine the wiring underneath, but finds nothing. Yet he can't stop looking for something. He doesn't even know what. One of the things Acre does in his search is determine the location of one of the accidents that took place on this intersection and spray painting a circle to indicate the location of impact and a series of lines showing the direction that the energy threw the vehicles. Like everything else he tries, he isn't able to determine a single thing based on this, but it does lead to a startling discovery. Acre is about to return home on a bus when he notices a helicopter in the distance flying past a high-rise. He looks, and a glare of sunlight from a window blinds him for an instant. He gets on the bus, and as he's blinking away the glare from his sight, he realizes there's a shape inside of it. The same shape he spray painted on the ground, a circle with lines traveling away. At this point, we get the first in a series of cutaways to what is referred to as the spectrum. Let me read from the script for this one. Cut 2. For 4 seconds, the screen is black except for one short vertical blue line on the far left. It emits a slow flare. This break is called a spectrum. We'll see others. Aker returns to the intersection the next day and watches the building again until another glare blinds him and he sees the shape again. These shapes are called glints. This time he draws it before it fades from his vision, and he discovers that it is identical to his spray-painted glint except for one detail. It has one extra spike protruding from it. Taking this as some kind of sign, Aker begins walking in the direction indicated by this extra spike and comes to a parking lot. There, he sees another glint, which gives him a new direction, where he discovers another glint and again, until he ends up right back at that same intersection, having traveled in a complete circle. His obsession has grown so intense by this point, he's actually outraged by this dead end, and it motivates him to quit his job and get a new one inside one of the buildings overlooking the intersection so he can observe it all day. He discovers that the spikes on the glints correspond with certain information: the number of cars that pass by in an hour, the number of pedestrians, the number of leaves that fall on the street, the number of birds on power lines. Everything is connected in some obscure way. But why? All of these numbers lead to more glints, more directions, and more circles. But they aren't perfect circles. They always have a little dent or a little protrusion every single time. Aker can't comprehend it. He ends up going to his ex-girlfriend for help, but they quickly settle back into old rhythms and fight and argue. But Aker does meet one of her friends, Amanda, and tells her about everything he's discovered, and like him, she gets pulled into it. She sees the glints too. She also wants to know why. What is all of this information trying to tell them? They both continue to follow glints to dead end after dead end until they follow one to an abandoned building and discover nearly a dozen people are already there. People they've never seen before. These people are collecting objects, just trash off the ground, and they don't know why. Aker sees a man with a pail and compares the pail with the circles that he's been traveling in and kept track of on a map. The pail has a little dent in it. It fits perfectly with these circles. At this point, we get another spectrum with another band of color. Now, Aker and Amanda join up with this group, led by an older man named Carol, who have been collecting items for some time, about as long as they have been following the glints, about 8 months. The items they are collecting are called poems. The poems are being used to construct a large device called the apologue. Nobody knows what the apologue is supposed to do. The glints simply lead to poems, which leads to another piece of the apologue. This group of theirs continues to grow and grow. More and more people are joining them and seeing signs, information, another little piece of the puzzle in every conceivable way, in sound, in light, in color. The whole universe appears to be coded in some way to relay information to these people. Years pass. This group travels all over the world, growing larger and larger, finding more and more poems, building the apologue bit by bit. Aker and Amanda marry. They have a child. They dedicate their lives to this endless pursuit, and no matter how much they find, they cannot get any closer to the answers. Throughout this entire journey, which is so complicated, I'm just going to have to skip over most of it, the spectrum continues to grow with more and more colors every time we cut away to it. At last, Aker can take no more. The frustration is too much for him. He can't stand the mystery, the fact that the answers continue to elude them. He has to walk away. 10 years later, Aker is now a successful politician. He's left the apologue behind him. He and Amanda have had another child, and their marriage is falling apart. Aker gets an unexpected visit from Carol. They finish the apologue. He wants Aker to come back and help them with the next step. Aker is apprehensive, but can't resist going back with Carol to see for himself what they've managed to accomplish after all these years. The apologue is revealed to be a kind of pinhole camera. The group takes it to different isolated locations all over the Earth at night, points it at a specific coordinate in the sky, inserts a plate at the base with a special chemical mixture inside of it, and the light from the stars burns patterns into the chemicals. They've already collected quite a few of these plates, and when they are stacked on top of each other, they appear to reveal a strange shape, which, and I am skipping ahead a little bit here, turns out to be another machine that they must construct. And there are still dozens more plates that must be collected. Aker is quickly able to determine that it will take them at least another 10 years to collect the remaining plates alone, not to mention the years of work that will be spent building yet another machine. And again, they are still no closer to that answer that Aker desires more than anything. Why? What is this all leading to? Who or what is behind it? He has no choice but to walk away once more, this time for good. He returns home to Amanda, and she has a surprise of her own waiting for him. Back when they were just beginning their search, she took Polaroid pictures of every glint they encountered, which were quite a few. They have boxes and boxes of pictures, and she's discovered a pattern related to the golden ratio of mathematics. The pictures, the glints, fit together in some way. They begin building a mosaic, at first just on the kitchen counter, but as it grows, they move it to a poster board on the wall in the living room, and it eventually grows out past the poster board, covering the entire wall. They stay up all night adding pictures to this mosaic. They even share some warm memories with each other. And then, something happens that I am simply unable to interpret, so I'm going to have to read directly from the script. Cut 2. Amanda attends to a piece. She notices Aker standing in the middle of the room staring at the wall, almost angry. She moves to his side. When she turns to the near-complete mosaic, her curiosity is replaced with disappointment. Aker. It's a dead end. The mosaic is revealed beyond them. It is almost a mirror reflection of the room and themselves. Where they stand, the rough shape and colors of their clothing, and even the furniture are all reproduced. Superimposed over it is what looks like a wall of abstract vertical lines. The end result? 2 figures facing a thick forest. Cut 2. Spectrum. We see the entire visible light spectrum, the number of colored lines so dense that the entire strip is blindingly white. Cut 2. Exterior, tree line, day. Framed identically to the mosaic, 2 boys, Albert, 11, and Carter, 12, stand in a clearing facing a thick forest, waiting for... Euclid steps out from the trees carrying something the size of a large car muffler wrapped in a dirty green blanket. He lays it on the ground and they crowd around. He peels back the corners of the blanket to reveal a rugged black machine. This is the Maker. Note, the rest of the story involves 10 boys. Here are their names and ages, grouped with their friends. Group 1, Euclid, 10, Carter, 12, Graham, 7, Samuel, 7. Group 2, Albert, 11, Marcus, 10, Javier, 11. Group 3, Vaughn, 11, George, 11, Hector, 9. From this point on, Aker and his story will never be referenced again. And after all that, we're still only 68 pages in. Next time we're going to dive into Act 2, which is just as fascinating and original as Act 1. This has been Unmade Masterpieces with DisRegarding Henry. Make sure you subscribe if you want to hear more, like the video, leave a comment. It's all much appreciated. And thank you for listening.